Welcome back to Fluent English, the podcast. I'm Georgia. Think in English.
And I'm Willem R. Today's episode is really exciting.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into a topic that on the surface might feel a bit distant, something happening way up high in government or in the Silicon Valley boardrooms. But I promise you, this isn't just some abstract geopolitical story. It's actually something that profoundly shapes your daily tech life, the phone in your pocket, the AI you might be using, and really the future of innovation itself. It's about these unseen forces driving pretty much everything.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, our deep dive today is all about unpacking this intensifying U.S.-China tech rivalry. It's a really complex struggle, isn't it, over semiconductor chips, the future of AI, and this whole intricate web of sanctions and market forces that are basically redefining global power. Our mission really is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge from the sources we've looked at, helping you understand why this isn't just some high-level fight. It directly impacts your gadgets, shapes our AI capabilities, and even influences future job markets. It's about how the digital world is being reshaped, tiny piece by tiny piece.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we need to start with the basics, right? The chips themselves, right? Semiconductor chips. We're talking about these microscopic engines, the literal brains behind everything from, your smartphone speed to the complex thinking done by AI. They're not just parts, they're the silent workhorses making everything function.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head there. They aren't just components. They're the absolute fundamental building blocks of, the entire modern digital world. Without them, our interconnected lives, everything from global finance to just chatting with friends, it would just grind to a halt. But what's really fascinating, and maybe often overlooked, isn't just what they do, but why making them is such an intense point of conflict. You see, producing these advanced chips, it's one of the most complex, capital-intensive, and geographically concentrated industries on the planet, seriously. We're talking about these fabrication plants, fabs, they call them. They cost tens of billions of dollars just to build and equip, and they need decades of know-how, intellectual property, super specialized engineers. There are only a handful of companies globally, and even fewer countries, that can actually design and make the real cutting-edge stuff. The chips powering the most advanced AI today. It's not just one factory. It's this whole ecosystem, special equipment makers, software designers, raw materials suppliers. It spans continents.
Wow. Tens of billions for one factory.
Yeah, it's incredible. And because this know-how is so concentrated, access to these critical brains becomes this huge source of geopolitical leverage. Just imagine your essential gadgets suddenly slowing way down, almost useless overnight. Or think about cutting-edge AI research, the kind of promising breakthroughs in medicine or climate science just grinding to a halt. Why? Because the supply of these essential chips gets blocked or severely limited. That's the real-world impact. It's tangible, it's not abstract, it hits the functionality, the speed, the cost of the tech you use every single day. And honestly, it's the foundation of national power now.
Right. So given how absolutely crucial these things are, the obvious question is, how did this competition turn into a full-blown tech war? Between the U.S. and China specifically, it feels like the tension's been building, but were there specific moments that really lit the fuse?
That's the key question, absolutely. And while, the competition's been there for a while, the story really picked up speed around 2014. That's when the Chinese government launched its National Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund. Most people just call it the Big Fund. And this wasn't just pocket change. It was a massive state-backed initiative. They poured hundreds of billions of yuan, truly vast sums into hundreds of semiconductor companies inside China.
Hundreds of billions?
Yeah. It was a clear declaration of intent. It showed China's ambition to move way beyond just making, the low-end processors for basic cars or appliances. They wanted to challenge for global leadership in advanced chip manufacturing. You might remember the Made in China 2025 plan. A big goal there was 70% self-sufficiency in core components by 2025, less reliance on foreign tech, becoming a real contender at the cutting edge.
Okay, so China makes this huge push with the big fund. How did the U.S. react?
Well, the U.S. government, starting under the Trump administration, definitely took notice, and they reacted decisively. They began the strategic campaign, really, to cut off China's access to a growing list of tools needed to make those advanced chips. We're talking the ones for high-performance servers, sophisticated AI, the really high-end stuff. It was a deliberate move calculated to slow down China's tech ambitions, basically trying to keep them from reaching that leadership spot too fast. The thinking was restrict access to foundational tech, maintain U.S. superiority.
And were there specific examples of these restrictions, like key technologies?
Oh, absolutely. A really striking one that shows the power of these bottlenecks, involved a Dutch company, ASML. You might have heard of them. China was specifically blocked from buying a very particular, highly specialized machine from ASML. It's called an extreme ultraviolet, or EUV, lithography machine. Now, why is this machine so special? Simply put, it's the only tech in the world that can etch circuits onto silicon wafers at the tiny scale needed for the most advanced chips. We're talking 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers, even 3 nanometers.
The only one.
The only one capable of that precision at scale. An EUV machine is like an engineering marvel. It's the size of a bus, costs hundreds of millions of dollars, takes over a year to build, and needs parts from all over the world. It uses this plasma light source and mirrors polished down to the atom to project light wavelengths just 14 nanometers long, smaller than DNA. This lets chip makers pack billions and billions of transistors onto a tiny chip like the size of your fingernail. So China not being able to buy even one of these machines, it effectively stalled their efforts to make truly cutting-edge chips. It created this tech gap that could take them a decade or more to close on their own, maybe never, given how fast the tech keeps evolving. It's a serious choke point.
Oh, okay. So ASML's EUV machine was one major flashpoint. What else?
Another big one, probably the most public face of it all, was Huawei, the Chinese telecom giant. U.S. officials kept citing national security concerns, claiming Huawei's gear, especially for 5G networks, could have backdoors for espionage, posing a risk to critical infrastructure. This became the backdrop for a much broader fight over economic and tech dominance, especially in that whole 5G race. So by 2020, the Trump administration really tightened the screws. They used something called the Foreign Direct Product Rule. Basically, it blocked Huawei from getting chips, even if they were made outside the U.S., as long as they used U.S. technology or equipment somewhere in the process.
Ah, so it reached beyond just U.S. companies.
Exactly. It wasn't just about Huawei. It was about drawing a line on tech influence and controlling these global supply chains.
Okay, so the strategy under Trump was clear. Choke off access, leverage bottlenecks like EUV. What happened when President Biden came in? Did things change? Did he ease up? Or
Yeah.
Oh, well, here's where it gets really interesting.
It is interesting because, no, President Biden didn't just keep those restrictions. His administration significantly ramped them up. It wasn't just staying the course. It was a major escalation. They wanted to broaden and deepen that technological blockade. In October 2022, and then again in October 2023, they rolled out new, really expansive export controls. These blocked sending the world's most advanced chips, specifically the ones designed for AI and high-performance computing, and the super specialized factory equipment needed to make them, directly to China.
So blocking the chips and the tools to make them.
Precisely. And the 2022 rules, especially, expanded that foreign direct product rule even further. It meant any chip made anywhere in the world, if it used U.S. tech or software in its production, it was subject to these controls if it was heading to China. This basically created a global choke point, hitting not just U.S. firms, but anyone using American IP. The goal was crystal clear. Not just slow down, but significantly cripple China's ability to develop its own advanced AI and military tech by cutting off the hardware and the manufacturing tools. It showed a real strategic intent to keep America's tech lead.
Okay, so the U.S. keeps tightening the screws, making it harder and harder for China to get these advanced chips and tools. Which leads us to the next big question. How has China reacted? They can't have just accepted this, right? What's their counter strategy been?
Right. They certainly haven't been passive, not at all. Their strategy has been this really powerful push towards self-reliance. It's fueled by, a clear sense of national urgency and this accelerated drive for innovation. The feeling inside China is very much, okay, if you won't sell it to us, we will build it ourselves.
And how are they doing that? Where are they focusing their efforts?
Well, our sources show they're investing incredibly heavily, striving for tech independence. Take Alibaba, for example, the huge Chinese tech company. They famously created their own AI chip. It wasn't just any chip. Things like their Yixin 710 were developed with a specific goal. Make them compatible with existing software ecosystems, many built around Nvidia's tech.
So trying to slide into what's already there.
Exactly. It was part of this broader push to bypass the U.S. limits by making homegrown alternatives that could still work in existing data centers and AI setups. Not reinventing the wheel totally, but making their own wheel that fits the existing axle, if that makes sense. It shows a clear plan to lessen the blow of U.S. controls by building up their own capabilities.
Makes sense. What else?
We also saw how rhetoric can actually fuel innovation. Remember when some U.S. officials reportedly called China addicted to American chips?
Yeah, I remember that phrasing.
Well, that didn't just go unnoticed. It really stung national pride in China. Of course, it prompted backlash, but more importantly, it spurred an accelerated development of domestic alternatives. It just shows how geopolitics, even just words, can directly inflame nationalism and become this powerful catalyst for tech innovation in a rival country. It creates this massive incentive to prove you can stand on your own 2 feet, pouring even more state money into their own companies like SMIC, their big chip manufacturer, or Huawei's chip design arm, his Silicon.
So pride and necessity driving innovation. Are there other angles to their strategy?
Yes, definitely. Beyond chips, China has significant leverage elsewhere, particularly with rare earth elements. These are like a group of 17 metals crucial for everything from EVs and wind turbines to advanced weapons and the screens on your devices. And China absolutely dominates their extraction and processing, over 80% of the world's refined supply.
Right, that's a huge dependency for the rest of the world.
It is. And our sources noted this really interesting, though brief, moment of detente. The U.S. actually lifted its ban on Nvidia's H20 chips, a specific AI chip we'll talk more about temporarily, in exchange for access to rare earths from China. It just demonstrates how incredibly complex and interconnected these trade dynamics are. China's ability to pull levers in other critical supply chains, like rare earths, gives them serious bargaining power. It shows this isn't a one-way street. Both sides are constantly looking for leverage points.
That's fascinating. So it's like this multi-dimensional chess game, not just focused on semiconductors, which brings us to the companies caught in the middle. You mentioned Nvidia. They seem absolutely central to this whole story. This California chip maker, famous for gaming cards, but now huge in AI. Why are they so critical? And how have they navigated this tightrope walk?
Yeah, NVIDIA's role here is absolutely critical. What's fascinating is that they are the undisputed leader in designing the specialized chips, GPUs, graphics processing units needed for cutting-edge AI. These GPUs are just incredibly good at the kind of parallel processing needed to train and run the massive AI models we're seeing everywhere now, like ChatGPT or those advanced image generators. They are right at the heart of this AI boom, providing the hardware foundation and that pivotal position. It puts them smack bang in the crosshairs of this tech rivalry. They're seen as a strategic asset by both sides, really. Their technology is so fundamental that any restriction on it has huge ripple effects on AI development globally.
So how have they actually dealt with these restrictions? It must have been incredibly disruptive.
Oh, incredibly. Their journey's been this constant balancing act, adapting to the rules, almost like solving a high-stakes engineering puzzle mixed with international law. So after those first big restrictions hit in 2022, NVIDIA's top-of-the-line H100 chips were directly blocked from sale in China. These were their most powerful AI accelerators, essential for cutting-edge AI training.
Okay, so their best stuff was off the table for China.
Right. So NVIDIA, being innovative and needing market access, designed a new chip, kind of a toned-down version. They specifically engineered it to be just under the technical limits set by those initial rules. The hope was, find a compliant way back into the massive Chinese market.
Clever. Did it work?
Well, not for long. The Biden administration reacted pretty quickly, escalating the restrictions again in 2023 to block those newer chips, too.
Right.
They basically closed that loophole NVIDIA had tried to create.
Oh, okay. So back to the drawing board for Nvidia.
Pretty much. So NVIDIA came out with another new chip, the H20. This one was even more meticulously designed, specifically trying to slip into the Chinese market under the now even tougher rules. It really shows a company desperately trying to serve a huge market while navigating this constantly shifting geopolitical minefield. Some analysts even call it regulatory arbitrage, optimizing not just for tech performance, but for legal compliance.
This constant back and forth, designing and redesigning,
Yeah.
it must have cost them a fortune.
A huge fortune. The financial impact has been significant. The numbers really tell the story. They reported a $4.5 billion hit to their finances just between February and April because of these restrictions. And then they estimated another potential $8 billion in lost sales from May through July, all directly due to the China export crackdown.
That's billions in missed opportunity.
Exactly. And those huge numbers understandably fueled their CEO, Jensen Huang, in his efforts to persuade U.S. officials that these restraints maybe could actually backfire on the U.S.
What was his argument exactly? How could restricting sales to China hurt the U.S.?
His argument was quite strategic, maybe even provocative. He basically said during an earnings call something like, look, the question isn't whether China will have AI, they already do. The real question, he argued, is whether one of the world's biggest AI markets will run on American platforms. His point was that shielding Chinese chip makers from U.S. competition by blocking Nvidia just strengthens those Chinese companies abroad and ultimately weakens America's own position.
So letting Nvidia compete keeps the U.S. relevant in China's AI scene.
That's the core of it. He sees a massive opportunity there, potentially $50 billion for Nvidia in China this year alone, maybe growing 50% a year if they get access. Denying U.S. companies that market, he argues, doesn't stop China's AI development. It just pushes them to develop it using their own homegrown tech or maybe tech from other countries. And that could actually undermine U.S. tech leadership long term by fostering a strong, independent Chinese tech ecosystem that doesn't rely on American platforms at all.
That's a really powerful argument from Huang, that blocking sales might actually strengthen the competition in the long run. It feels almost counterintuitive to the policy aims. How much traction does that view get in Washington? What's the counterargument?
That's exactly where the tension lies. Huang's view, while clearly good for Nvidia's bottom line, does highlight a genuine strategic dilemma for the U.S. government. In Washington, especially among those focused heavily on national security, the counterargument is basically that the risk of China reaching tech parity, particularly in military AI uses, is just too high. They argue that this risk outweighs any short-term economic benefits for U.S. companies like Nvidia. Their view is, even if China eventually develops its own platforms, the delay caused by U.S. sanctions buys critical time for America to stay ahead and secure its lead in sensitive areas like defense and intelligence. It's about strategic containment over immediate market access.
So a fundamental clash between economic interests and national security concerns.
Precisely. And we saw a really interesting twist recently. Remember the H20 chip Nvidia designed to comply? Well, initially sales were halted again in April, citing national security. But then, in July, both Nvidia and AMD announced that Washington would let them resume sales for AI development in China.
Oh, so they reversed course.
Sort of, but with a very specific and kind of unusual condition. In August, both companies agreed to give 15% of the revenue from these specific chip sales to China back to the U.S. government.
Wait, the U.S. government takes a cut?
Yeah, as part of the deal to get the export licenses. NVIDIA's CFO, Colette Kress, put a positive spin on it, emphasizing that every license sale we make will benefit the U.S. economy, the U.S. leadership. It's a fascinating move, isn't it? The government effectively taxing the very sales it was trying to block. It really blurs the lines between restriction and, well, economic participation, maybe trying to find that balance.
That is unusual. A 15% cut straight to the government. Does that mean things are smoothed over now?
Not quite. Despite these agreements, there's still complexity and, frankly, mistrust. Our sources indicate the Chinese government has reportedly told its own local firms to try and avoid using that H20 chip, citing their own security concerns now.
China is telling its companies not to buy the Nvidia chip they fought to sell.
Apparently so, according to reports. It shows this incredibly delicate balance, right? And the deep-seated suspicion that still exists on both sides, even when they reach commercial deals. It signals that China might still prioritize true homegrown control, maybe even accepting lower-performing domestic chips over foreign ones they might see as potentially compromised. Both sides are definitely still playing the long game here.
Wow. Okay, so zooming out from the specific companies and chips, what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? We've talked chips, sanctions, companies like Nvidia caught in the middle. But it feels like this is about more than just trade or profits or even getting the latest phone. This feels bigger.
It absolutely is bigger. If we really connect all these dots, this whole fight is fundamentally about global tech leadership. Full stop. It's about who sets the standards, who defines the cutting edge, who holds the keys to future tech progress. Because whoever controls advanced chip technology, they ultimately control the future of not just commercial AI that we all see, but also supercomputing, crucial defense capabilities. Think advanced weapons, cyber warfare, and so many other strategic sectors that are going to shape the rest of this century. It's not just an economic rivalry, it's a deep strategic competition for the very foundation of tomorrow's power structures. Some people call it a new Cold War, but fought with silicon chips instead of missiles.
A silicon Cold War. That's a powerful image.
And it's clear that governments, especially the US and China, are now deeply involved in their chip industries. They're not just letting private companies handle it anymore. They see these industries as vital strategic national assets, crucial for security and economic strength. Look at the U.S. passing the CHIPS and Science Act, over $52 billion in subsidies to boost domestic chip making and R&D.
Right, trying to bring manufacturing back home.
Exactly. It's a direct government move to onshore production, reduce reliance on potentially vulnerable foreign supply chains, essentially mirroring China's own state-led efforts with their big fund. So you have the U.S. banking on export controls to slow China down, trying to starve their advanced sectors of computing power. And meanwhile, China is just doubling down on massive state investment, mobilizing everything they can, pushing for complete self-reliance, aiming to build their own robust chip industry immune to foreign sanctions. This dual strategy denial from the U.S., self-sufficiency from China just keeps amplifying the stakes. It guarantees this will be a defining global competition for years, probably decades to come.
Okay, this sounds incredibly high level, affecting nations, huge corporations. But let's bring it right back down to earth. Back to you listening right now. How does this complex dance between governments and tech giants actually affect your daily life? And maybe more importantly, your future? What does it mean for the tech you use, the services you count on?
That's a really important question, isn't it? Why should you care about the nitty-gritty of chip rules? Well, the implications are actually pretty direct, and they shape the tech world you live in, maybe in ways you don't even notice yet. First off, just think about your access to AI tools. If chip supplies get more restricted or fragmented between countries or subject to more national control, the AI tools you use now, maybe for work, creative stuff, your smart assistant, even just personalized online recommendations, they might actually slow down. The development of newer, smarter AI could get delayed, or the cost of using those AI services could go up quite a bit, making them less accessible for everyone. Imagine the rapid AI progress we've seen suddenly hitting speed bumps, or the coolest new features just not being available where you live because of these tensions.
Right, that smooth evolution we've gotten used to could stutter.
Exactly. And secondly, think about product development and innovation itself. This whole tug of war directly hits the prices of your gadgets. If supply chains get messed up, if manufacturing costs rise because countries are trying to build less efficient factories at home, or if companies have to redesign products for different markets, you could see higher prices for your next phone, your laptop, your smart speaker. It also slows down the overall pace of global AI research. If key chips are kept away from certain researchers or regions, it slows everyone down. And it affects jobs in tech. As companies deal with these restrictions, they might shift R&D or manufacturing to other countries, maybe India, Vietnam, Southeast Asia. That changes where new products get dreamt up and made. It could really shift career opportunities and the skills needed in different places, maybe impacting your own job prospects down the line.
The job market impact is an interesting angle, too.
Yeah, and finally, maybe the biggest long-term thing. This rivalry could lead to a real fragmentation of global tech, different ecosystems. What that could mean for you is different hardware, different software, depending on whether you're in the US or China or maybe Europe. Think about compatibility issues, less choice in devices and services, maybe less of the broad, interconnected innovation we've benefited from. Some people talk about a digital iron curtain. Imagine your devices just not working well with services or devices from another block.
The digital iron curtain.
Yeah, trying to share a simple document or collaborate seamlessly across these divides could become a huge hassle, like trying to plug different electrical standards together, but for everything digital.
That is a stark image. A digital iron curtain. It really makes you think how much we take our globally connected tech for granted, doesn't it? The convenience of it all just working. The idea of that fragmenting is pretty unsettling. Okay. As we start to wrap this up, this has been a fascinating, if slightly worrying, discussion. Let's try and boil it down. What are the absolute core takeaways, the main things you should remember from this deep dive into the US-China tech war?
Yeah, let's simplify. I think we've seen three main, really interconnected things happening that are shaping this whole landscape. First, export controls. The U.S. is actively, strategically limiting the flow of the most advanced chip technology, those digital brains, to China. It's a deliberate, ongoing policy aimed at curbing China's tech rise, especially in AI and military areas.
Okay, the U.S. putting up walls.
Second, China's response. China isn't just taking it. They're retaliating and pushing incredibly hard for self-reliance, pouring massive state funds into their own chip industry to become independent. And they're using their leverage in other areas, like rare earths, as a counter-move in this complex game.
Right, China pushing back and building its own capacity.
And third, the rise of state power in tech. This isn't just companies battling it out anymore. Governments, especially the US and China, are now deeply involved strategically. They see chips and related tech as essential national assets, fundamental for power, security, and future leadership. The line between national interest and company business has gotten really blurry. It's a new era.
Export controls, China's self-reliance push, and governments taking the driver's seat.
Got it.
So, in a nutshell, what we've explored today shows that these tiny chips, they aren't just humble bits of silicon inside your phone. They're incredibly powerful strategic assets. They're actively reshaping global power, and whether you realize it day-to-day or not, profoundly influencing your technological future.
Which really leads to a final thought, maybe a question for you, our listener. As you go about your day using all this tech, what stands out most to you from this? Thinking about your own life. Which device or tech advance do you rely on most? Maybe it's your AI assistant, your work computer, your connected car that, after hearing all this, makes you genuinely concerned. What scares you or just makes you think if chip access gets restricted, or if we really do head towards that fragmented digital iron curtain, what would truly change for you?
That's a great question to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the incredibly complex, incredibly critical world of the U.S.-China tech war. We hope you feel a little more informed, maybe a lot more curious about these hidden forces shaping our tech world and your place in it. Until next time, keep exploring.